Happy Friday, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Lee Jae-yoon in Seoul. Coming up on today's edition of Business Daily. Korea's exports surged in the first 10 days of this month thanks to rising demand for its semiconductors, while import and export prices also rose in July. Rising tensions between the U.S. and North Korea have rattled financial markets around the world, with South Korea's benchmark Kospi far from immune to the geopolitical risk. These stories and more coming right up. The main growth engines of Asia's fourth largest economy are purring along nicely, propping up import and export prices for the month of July. Our Kim Ji-yeon starts us off.
The prices of Korea's exports and imports rose in July, the ninth consecutive month of on-year gain. Preliminary data released by the Bank of Korea on Friday shows prices of imports rose by 0.4% last month compared to June. It's the first time since April that import prices have increased on month. They were largely driven by a price surge in coal and petrochemical products. Prices of Korean exports also rose 1% on month in July, on the back of price gains in semiconductors, the country's main export item, as global demand spiked. And it wasn't a one-off phenomenon, as data released by Korea Customs Service showed chip exports soaring nearly 53% during the first 10 days of August compared to the same period last year. Petrochemical exports also jumped 76.6% on year during the cited period, while overall exports gained by more than 28%. Both export and import prices were propped up from an uptick in international oil prices. Dubai crude, Korea's benchmark, rose 2.4% from the previous month, trading at an average of nearly $48 a barrel in July. The value of the Korean won, which fell 0.4% on month against the greenback in July, also played a part in the price gain, as every dollar earned by Korean exporters resulted in higher income when exchanged for the local currency. Kim Ji-yeon, Business Daily.
Korea's overseas direct investment slipped in the second quarter from a year earlier, as investments bound for China fell by almost 45% on year. The finance ministry said on Friday that Korea's foreign direct investment outflow amounted to $8.5 billion in the April to June period, falling 3.2% on year. It also marked a 37% on-quarter plunge from the $13.45 billion tallied between January and March. The fall was mainly attributed to a sharp plunge in FDI bound for China and Vietnam. Data showed that investments in China plummeted 44.7% on year to $470 million, while those in Vietnam fell 22.6% to $450 million in the second quarter. Meanwhile, the U.S. was Korea's top investment destination, up 21.6% from a year ago. By sector, FDI in foreign manufacturing and the financial sectors both fell 22.8% and 35.7%, respectively. Venture firm exports put in a strong performance in the first half of this year on the back of growing outbound shipments to China, Vietnam, and the United States. The Korea International Trade Association said earlier today that venture exports went up 16% on year for a total of $9.86 billion. If the current pace is maintained for the full year, it would be their first double-digit growth since the incredible 50% spike back in 2010. After declines in 2012 and 2013, exports have been steadily recovering, with a 10.3% on-year growth seen in June. Small and medium-sized companies that are highly specialized and have good growth potential can be designated as venture firms by the government, eligible to receive state support. And moving on to markets, to tell us more about today's stock market action as well as a wrap-up of this week's trade, our markets contributor Lee Ji-hye from NPR is on the line. Hello, Ji-hye.
Hello, Ji-yoon.
All right, so equities traded lower today due to heightened tensions on the Korean peninsula. Tell us more.
Sure. South Korean stocks retreated and the country's currency fell to a 4-week low after the U.S. and North Korea traded threats. The Kospi index fell 1.69%, down to 2,319.7. and the Kosdaq also fell 1.83% to 628.34. The main bourse was mostly down, with Samsung Electronics down 2.79%, SK Hynix dropping 4.66%, and Hyundai Motors fell by 2.07%. There were a few gains, including LG Chemicals, Samsung Life Insurance, and SK Innovation. The Kospi today was down at its lowest level since May 25th, following comments from Donald Trump that he may not have been tough enough in his warning earlier this week to Pyongyang, and that the U.S. would deploy fire and fury if the country did not abandon North Korea's nuclear ambitions. South Korea's won also weakened further against the dollar, down to 1,147.431, a one-month low.
Let's talk more about the geopolitical tension here in Korea that you just mentioned. Now, does the government have a plan to address concerns in the market, and what further impact will it have as we move forward?
Well, regards to the plan, the Ministry of Finance and Strategy, they convened a meeting earlier today with officials close to the matter to discuss such impacts or possibilities of tension caused by North Korean statements on the local market. Attendees met to discuss contingency plans on how to respond in terms of the domestic and foreign exchange market should further provocations continue, and that they will closely monitor the situation to ease public tension overall.
All right, then, how did other markets across Asia perform today?
Sure. In terms of Asian equity markets, they extended a global slide. Tensions ramped up between the United States and North Korea, sending investors fleeing to less risky assets such as the Japanese yen, the Swiss franc, and U.S. Treasuries. MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan skidded 1.2% in its third season of declines, heading for a 2.1% drop of the week. Chinese blue chips lost 0.75%, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng was 1.6% lower. When it comes to Australian shares, they were down 1.2%, which was set for a weekly loss of 0.5%. Japanese markets, on the other hand, were closed for a holiday. This has been Lee Ji-hye for Business Daily.
A U.S. congressional think tank has reaffirmed that the cost of the THAAD missile defense system here in South Korea should be covered by the United States. There had been some confusion over who would shoulder the hefty bill after U.S. President Donald Trump said Seoul should fork out the full amount. Our Yoo Jun-hee reports.
A report by the Congressional Research Service outlines that the cost for the U.S. THAAD missile defense system on Korean soil and its maintenance should fall on the United States, not South Korea. This goes directly against what President Trump had said back in April.
It's the most incredible equipment you've ever seen, and it protects them. But they should pay for that, and they understand that.
Though the White House did clarify later that President Trump's comments were not the administration's official stance, the mixed messages triggered confusion in Seoul. The report points out that under the Allies' agreement, South Korea is to provide the land for the defense system, while the cost and maintenance is Washington's burden to bear. And that bill is estimated at anywhere between $800 million and $1.6 billion US dollars. The report also delved into the cost of maintaining the 28,000 American troops stationed in South Korea, of which Seoul currently pays half. Touching base on the South Korea-US free trade deal, the report noted that Seoul is not to blame for the trade deficit, and that the scope of a possible renegotiation of the FTA is unclear, as the Trump administration has not yet formally notified Congress of its plans. Yoo Jun-hee, Business Daily.
And now let's go ahead and take a look at some global business stories with our Eunice Kim joining us in the studio. Hello, Eunice.
Hello.
All right, so global markets have started to take notice of the North Korean threat, especially given the escalating tensions between U.S. President Donald Trump and Pyongyang this week.
That's right, and it looks like neither side is ready to back down on this war of words. North Korea now saying it's plotting to send missiles to Guam, where the U.S. military keeps a strong presence. Now, following U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson's try at dialing back this aggression, President Trump was back upping the ante once again. Take a look. A war of words reignited. The outspoken U.S. president made himself clear overnight that he stands by his earlier fire and fury comments should Pyongyang continue to lob threats at the United States.
Let's see what he does with Guam. He does something in Guam, it will be an event the likes of which nobody's seen before, what will happen in North Korea.
It's the latest entry in the week's quickly escalating back and forth of verbal threats. Following Trump's initial brash warning, North Korea's state-run KCNA news agency said a plan to launch a salvo of missiles toward Guam is being devised for Kim Jong-un's review by mid-August. It said 4 intermediate-range ballistic missiles will fly over Japanese airspace to land in waters 30 to 40 kilometers from the U.S. island territory, also a popular vacation spot for South Koreans. Officials in Guam showed little alarm.
Again, they threatened us since 2013, the lay of the land in terms of what is happening in the Korean Peninsula, what is happening in the Western Pacific, what is happening in Guam. There has been no change in terms of an alert.
But investors have started to take notice. Fresh off a multi-week rally, the Dow on Wall Street has been falling in the latter half of the week, sinking by 200 points in Thursday's session, its biggest drop since May. This as the Kospi that had hit 8 straight sessions of fresh closing highs last month has been registering deep losses as foreign investors flee. The Korean won has weakened by 15-1 to the greenback this week as safe havens like the Japanese yen and spot gold both soar to 2-month highs. The lasting question on many minds is whether the latest round of UN sanctions against North Korea will stick to slow its missile program down. According to recent Bank of Korea estimates based on Seoul's intelligence data, the reclusive country's economy was expanding at its fastest rate in 17 years, at 3.9% in 2016, despite years of punishing economic sanctions and severe famines.
Now, we heard the national security heads of South Korea and the U.S. spoke on the phone earlier today. What did they discuss there?
Well, they certainly reaffirmed their alliance and also agreed to closely and transparently cooperate on the next steps in this bout of escalating North Korean aggression. This according to the presidential office spokesman Park Soo-hyun, who said the call was between Seoul's head of national security Chung Eui-yong and Washington's national security advisor H.R. McMaster. While the presidential office of Cheongwade did not elaborate or disclose what those next steps would be, we did hear from the U.S. Defense Secretary James Mattis emphasizing on Thursday U.S. time diplomacy is at the front foot right now via State Secretary Rex Tillerson as well as U.S. Ambassador to the UN Nikki Haley.
The tragedy of war is well enough known. It doesn't need another characterization beyond the fact that it would be catastrophic.
And of course, we saw new, tougher sanctions against North Korea rolled out by the United Nations last weekend. Now, how effective would they be in cutting off the revenue stream?
Well, that is the big question, isn't it? Because we have seen North Korean economy grow despite these sanctions. And also, how committed is North Korea's ally China in keeping that pressure on Pyongyang? This afternoon, we did hear from a Chinese state-run newspaper, the Global Times, that should North Korea conduct a missile launch that threatens the U.S., Beijing should remain neutral. Of course, we are still waiting for official word from the Chinese central government on that. But as an indication there, as over the weekend, all 15 members of the UN Security Council, including China and Russia, had unanimously agreed to impose the harshest sanctions yet on North Korea. It would target exports of North Korean coal, iron ore, lead, and seafood, which collectively account for about a third of the reclusive state's exports. So estimates are telling us the impact could amount to $1 billion in revenue. But of course, June, a lot of these North Korean companies operate as shell companies with a Chinese firm often fronting that firm. So it's a very tricky situation.
All right. Well, the whole world is watching as well as markets. So I guess this will continue to develop.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming in today.
You bet.
The number of women in Korea's workforce has hit an all-time high in July. Data from Statistics Korea shows some 11 million women were employed last month, up 180,000 on year. Around 15 million men were working, an increase of 130,000 from the same month last year. Male workers still outnumber women in the workforce, but the number of working women is rising at a faster clip. However, women were found to have less job stability, as more than 3 out of 10 female workers held temporary jobs compared to roughly 2 out of 10 men. Koreans are buying more products directly from overseas on growing demand for cheaper price tags. Korea Customs Service reported today that both the number of transactions and the total value of overseas purchases rose sharply in the first half of the year. Shoppers bought more than $974 million worth of foreign goods via international shopping malls for an on-year gain of 30%. These purchases were conducted via 19.6 million transactions, up 34% compared to a year earlier. The U.S. was the most popular source of foreign goods, but saw its shares decrease amid rapid growth in Europe, China, and Japan. Food items, followed by cosmetics, were the most popular, while electronics purchases doubled, spurred by an influx of air purifiers from China. A Korean court has rejected a request from fast food giant McDonald's to block the release of a consumer report on its hamburger patties. McDonald's had filed an injunction saying the Korea Consumer Agency's sanitary inspection of its restaurants was in violation of the country's food hygiene law. However, the court dismissed the request on Thursday, saying there was no reason to block the public disclosure of the consumer watchdog's findings. The KCA study was launched after several customers became ill after eating what they said was undercooked meat served by McDonald's. While the fast food chain has denied all allegations, the consumer watchdog says it will release the results of a probe after an additional review. A new type of display that's been dubbed the display of the future is now on the verge of mass production. With the help of a new production process, they can also be rolled out more quickly and at a lower cost. Our Elliot Kim tells us more.
Micro-LEDs are emerging as the next generation display technology, following organic light-emitting diodes, more commonly known as OLEDs. LCDs and OLEDs currently dominate the display market, but are limited in flexibility and have high power consumption, leading Korean researchers to start work on the new display technology. Development thus far has produced a display that can be formed into many different shapes, is 50% more energy efficient, and has 3 times the luminous efficacy of OLEDs. The nano-applied mechanics team at the Korea Institute of Machinery and Materials has also developed what is being called a roll transfer process, similar to newspaper printing, that consumes less power and makes the production process more reliable and flexible.
With conventional technologies, we can transfer around 2 LEDs per second, but with our new technology, we can transfer around 40,000 per second.
Prior to these developments, high-end 100-inch displays took 30 days to produce, but now it only takes less than an hour and comes at a significantly lower cost. The technology has 100 patents associated with it and has been published in 62 papers, most notably in Advanced Functional Materials, a bi-monthly scientific journal. Elliot Kim, Business Daily.
Competition is revving up in the automobile industry, and local car makers are now offering unprecedented services to gain an edge over their rivals. Our Lee Ju-young has more.
Office worker Lee Jun-young purchased a small SUV 1 month ago. Prior to signing a contract for the vehicle, he found the space to be a little cramped, but the low price prompted him to buy it. But after weeks of frustration with the vehicle, he went to the dealership and swapped it for a larger model.
Because we have 4 people in our family, the small space was problematic. This program lets you exchange your vehicle within the first month if you're unhappy with it.
Thanks to this trade-in program that Hyundai Motors started last September, Lee was able to easily switch to another car that better suited his needs. The program allows customers to exchange their vehicles within the first month of purchase, and in case of an accident within the first year, they can replace it with a new one. Since customers have been able to switch vehicles with ease, customer satisfaction has risen and the number of people using the trade-in program has doubled this year.
It's a customer management program aimed at solving various issues that arise from a customer's viewpoint following a car purchase.
GM Korea and Ssangyong Motors also have similar plans in place that allows vehicle trade-ins within the first month, with hopes of increasing their market shares through these programs.
Vehicles are often replaced not because of breakdowns, but due to new available designs or technology. Thus, automakers are running trade-in programs to increase customer loyalty and satisfaction.
Potential customers are advised to carefully review the agreement on the terms and conditions of use when taking advantage of these programs, as subscription renewals and additional fees often come into play. Lee Ju-young, Business Daily.
People often want exotic experiences when they're on vacation, and Gangwon-do province might be home to a few places that offers just that. And our Park Hee-jun takes us there for a look at some cool summer activities you can enjoy on your next visit to Korea's easternmost province.
A few days have passed since Ipchu, the traditional start of autumn in Korea, but the summer heat shows no signs of dying down. But just an hour away from Seoul is Gangwon-do province, a place blessed with relatively cooler temperatures and some of the best scenery in the country. And with the chance to do thrilling summer sports such as rafting, nothing can beat a summer vacation in Gangwon-do province.
Whitewater rafting is one of the most exciting sports you can try in the summer, and the best place for it in Korea is right here, Arirang Stream. With its rapid currents and beautiful scenery, it's perfect for thrill seekers.
Teams of 6 to 8 navigate their way through the fast-flowing water while building confidence and teamwork. But what sets whitewater rafting apart are the incredible views. Jagged rocks and pine-covered mountains help visitors forget about their exhaustion. And above the Arirang Stream is a different kind of fun, ziplining. The hike can seem frightening at first, but once you take off, nothing compares to the amazing feeling of flying above such gorgeous surroundings. But a more extreme activity also awaits visitors just a few minutes away by car. The slingshot offers fun seekers a new type of thrill as it shoots riders up to 45 meters above ground in just 2 seconds. The ride lasts for about 2 minutes, but it's enough to give visitors a taste of what it feels like to free fall from the sky. In another area of Gangwon-do province is Jangohang Port, nicknamed the Naples of Korea. Jangohang Port has one of the most beautiful beaches in the country. Although it's relatively small, there's a lot for visitors to do, including rowing in transparent canoes and snorkeling.
The water's clean and there are lots of fun activities.
This place has its own unique scenery, and it's great that we can enjoy snorkeling.
Just a few years ago, the beach wasn't widely known to the public, but now a great number of people venture to the clean water to swim among the schools of fish. Jangohang is one of the safest shallow beaches in Korea, making it a great destination for people who like to splash around in the water. So for visitors to Gangwon-do province this summer, the stunning scenery and wide range of cool summer activities are more than enough to make sure you enjoy your trip. Park Hee-jun, Business Daily.
And that wraps it up for today and this week. Thanks so much for watching. We'll be back next week with more at the same time, same place for your Business Daily. Until then, goodbye.